Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 3 of the Jenny Luan image with the dragon boy and the mermaid girl. Today we're going to be finishing off the mermaid, so let's pop in and have a look. So we're going to be working on the mermaid in this session. This one is a little bit longer. I think it's about 45 minutes. So we're going to get through all of the mermaid here. So we're going to start with her skin. And as I said earlier on in the first video, we're going to be using cool colors for her skin because she's in the water. So I'm going to add some purples rather than the orange to the shadow areas of her skin. So I think I did also mention that we're going to use a little bit of light I guess theory in here, but not a lot. I've just sort of, as I was colouring this in, realised that a lot of the underneath of her is going to be quite dark because there's going to be no sun under the water there. So you would do everything on the bottom part of her a little bit darker than the rest. So her shadows from that bottom section there on her skin, that whole part of her back there is going to be quite dark. So I just wanted to sort of mention that as I come through. So I'm using purple violet and I'm coming in and I'm doing exactly the same thing as I did with the skin on the man. So we're just coming in and marking out all of those areas that are going to be definite shadows. So where things lay on the skin, looking at the sun and where she's going to have most of her shadow. So I've just sort of pointed if it was coming down from the top there, then she's going to be quite dark all the way around her hairline, also on her back here, and down underneath all of these areas would actually be quite dark. It'll be mainly her face that would be quite light. So we will make sure that those sections are lighter as we come through. So I'm going to go in and finish lining this out. Remember, I am using really light pressure here. I'm not putting any indentations in the paper. I'm keeping my pencil nice and smooth and just gliding over the paper there, just laying down that color nicely. So now I'm going to use similar colours to what I used in the other skin. I'm coming in with medium flesh now and going over the top of that and just sort of bringing it a little bit further out. You can see that I've put little lines in for the features again, like the finger creases and also on the wrist there I've gone in a little bit to show that it's it's a little bit bonier and there's some more shadows there. So I'm coming in over the top of that previous color and just with light pressure again, just coming a little bit further out towards the wider areas. So you can see already it's changed the tone of the skin. One's really quite tanned and dark and the other one's really quite light and it's cooler. So I'm just going to finish this off now. Light pressure again and just bringing it a little bit further out. So you can see there I've come up a little bit of a distance there on her shoulder just to bring that in a little bit further and make that shadow a little bit deeper. So I've got cinnamon next, and I'm just coming over the top of that previous colour and laying that down through and up into the highlight section. So we're still going to keep quite a little bit of highlights on it because we want that front sun part there to have some nice light colour through it. So I'm just coming over still lightly, and we're going to come in a little bit and do a second layer. So now we've got our light flesh, and I'm coming in and covering up almost all of the skin areas now. I'm going to be quite light, and I am going to leave a slight little area there for the white that I'm going to put in over the top. So we are coming over most of it, but we still want to leave a tiny little bit of white there as well. You can still go over those white areas, but just make sure you are using really light pressure so that you're not putting too much color into those areas. So you can see that I've kind of left the shoulder a little bit there, but I've gone over it really, really gently with it. So I've still chosen to put a little bit of cream on there as well, so I'm coming in with that one, just light pressure over the whole area. So I'm just going to use a white Polychromos pencil here. I'm not going to use the Caran d'Ache or anything yet. I'm just going to come in and put a little bit of this over it just to stop any more colour coming over the top. I've just realised though I want to put a little bit of pink into her cheeks. I've used Pink Madder Lake, and I've just created a little bit of a blush tone there on her cheek, still using light pressure. So now I'm going to come over with the Luminance white pencil. I've decided not to do a second layer. I'm just going to try and blend this through and keep it nice and light. So I'm coming out from the highlighted areas out towards those shadow areas so I don't spread some of that darker colour into the lighter skin. So she's looking quite nice. There are definitely differences. I missed a little bit of violet up near the hair there, so I've just filled that out there. So I think I'm quite happy with its skin being so light. You could come back in if you wanted and darken up those shadows a little bit. It's up to you. I've got pink Madder Lake there for the fingers, and I'm just blending that out with a little bit of the white Polychromos pencil there. So just dusting it all off there and having a closer look at this, I decided that I wanted to put the Caran d'Ache blending stick over the top of it just so I don't smudge it off and to make it nice and smooth and finish it off there. So I've got some purple violet and I'm going to use this for the hair. So this will be all of the shadow areas at the moment. Now once I fill out the hair though, I do realize that it really did need a darker shadow color. It wasn't quite dark enough for me, so I've come back in with a color at the end just to deepen those up a bit. So it is good to know that with this type of pencil work that you're doing, you can come back over the top of it as long as you haven't completely pushed down that tooth, or if you lay something like the Luminance pencil over the top of it, you can still go over the top of that with a darker color. So I'm just coming in, and what I'm actually doing is looking at the dips and valleys in the hair. So what I'm trying to achieve is the look of having wavy hair. So obviously when the hair waves down, it's further away from you, and as it lifts up, it's closer to you. So we want to try and make that illusion by doing light and dark areas in those spots. So where it dips down, I'm going to make sure I do it darker, and where it pops up, I'm going to make sure I do it lighter. So that's sort of how I look at hair in its entirety, I guess. Obviously you can treat every individual part of this hair as a separate piece, and you can work on that kind of thing here. So with the dips and the valleys, I'm going to put darker pressure down in the bottom here, and on the top there I'm not going to put anything. So we're doing dark in the bottom dips, and we're going to leave it light on the top. So that's all I'm doing all the way along each individual part of this hair. Now you can, I'm just colouring it in, I'm not actually doing any texture or anything through here. It is quite tiny, and there was already a lot of lines in there, so I didn't really want to sort of add to that by increasing that and making it a little bit more difficult for you guys as well. So you can just use lines or little strokes of hair through those sections, and it'll look quite nice as well. I've just decided just to colour it in those spots. Haven't actually done too many individual streaks. I am colouring it on a vertical angle in those sections though, so it does look a little bit like it's been coloured in the way that the hair's going as well. So I'm going to go in and fill out the rest of this now, and I'm also going to make it a little bit darker around the edge there where the border is as well. So we'll put a little bit of darker colour through in there. So I'm just going to extend on that and make that a little bit further out now. So we're going to go over the top of the purple violet with violet, and we're just going to bring that a little bit further up towards the edges of those highlighted areas. So we don't want to go completely over them because we still want them to be quite nice and light. So you can see there that now I'm building up that color up. You can see that there's a defined sort of highlight area in each of those sections of hair now. So that's all I'm doing, just not too heavy pressure. I'm still using quite a light to medium pressure here, and just coming in over the top of the previous color and extending it further out towards those wider sections. So you can see on each piece of hair I've come in from one side and then come in from the other to create that illusion that it's darker in the dip or the valleys, and then it's lighter up on the hills there. So I'm going to put a light purplish pink through there, which is crimson, And this is actually the same colors that we've used in the wings, so we're kind of getting them to match a little bit there. And the color, I guess, organized on the page, then you've got your purple on the left and you've got your greens and blues on the right, so it kind of looks quite nice, I think. So I'm coming in now and I'm almost covering over those highlighted bits, not too much. I'm still using quite light pressure. I'm actually just using a couple of little strokes through that area there. I'm not trying to cover over that white completely. Coming in with the white Polychromos pencil, and I'm actually just sort of putting some little lines in over the highlighted sections mainly. So you can see that I have gone over some instances where I've gone into the purple as well, and that's because some of the tooth was still showing. So I'm kind of using this color now to go over and make sure all of the tooth has pigment on it, using that white Polychromos pencil this time. So the differences between them is the white Polychromos pencil isn't as creamy and smooth, and it doesn't sort of change the color as much as what the white Luminance pencil does. I've just missed a bit there, so I've just filled that in, and I've done her eyebrows as well there. So yeah, so this color here isn't quite as opaque, I guess. It doesn't go over as much as what the Luminance does, so I didn't want to change the color too much, and I also want to come in and put a darker color into those shadow areas, so I've used the white Polychromos for this one. So I'm going to bring in the mauve and just put in a dark shadow area. So here I'm going to show you how you can fix up a mistake if you do go over the top of another color that you've already done. So with the mauve, it's quite dark, and I actually went on the face here with the skin. So I've grabbed my colorless blender and I've just kind of rubbed gently on there and actually rubbed the color off. So you can see how that worked really, really well. I'm going to do it again later on, so you'll be able to see again with a closer look and see how that worked. But all I've done is gone in with that Prismacolor blender and just scratched off the darker colored pigment so that you couldn't see it on the face there. So it's quite good as a bit of an eraser when it comes to things like that as well. So I just wanted to show you that as well. So I'm still coming in now and I'm doing all of these shadow areas. I am going to blend them out slightly with the purple again after this, because it did look a little bit too dark and it sort of looked too defined. I could see where like I'd put in the lines and things, so I wanted to sort of soften that off a little bit, I guess. So I'll come back in with another purple after this just to soften that off a little bit, and then the hair will be done. So I've just got that purple violet and I'm just softening off those areas now. So I don't want to go too far out, but I just want them a little bit softer and less defined, but still want to keep those shadow areas. So I'm just doing this side of the hair and then I'll continue on and finish the rest. So just come in with the crimson and just put a little bit more colour in a moment, just to I guess come over those highlighted sections a little bit more. So you can see I'm just sort of stroking through those sections. I'm not filling them in completely with colour. I'm just sort of doing some lines through there just to brighten up the highlighted sections and make them look a little less washed out. So I'm just coming along and doing that now. I'm going to go over this with the Caran d'Ache blending stick as well, just to get that nice and smooth and to stop that smudging as well. So I've got some deep cobalt green and I'm just trying to figure out what the best sort of angle was to show you this on, so excuse me fiddling around with the paper there. So what I'm actually doing is the light's coming from the top, so we're going to create some shadows underneath the folds here. So this is really great for clothing as well. When you have a dress that's got folds and things like that in it, you can create some nice effects with that and make it look kind of more 3D. So you can see I've just lined in between a couple of those spots there that hadn't actually had a line in them, but all we're doing is creating this shadow part here. So this will be where it looks like it's folding in, so there'll be no light in those sections. So I'm just marking them out first, and also the light would be coming sort of from the top direction, as I said earlier, so some of these other areas underneath here will be a lot darker. So I'm just sort of doing light pressure to start with, and then I'm going to come in and just go over those areas and deepen them up a bit. So I wanted to mark them out first. All of those lines that are coming down I've extended further towards the next part of the tail as well, so that they now connect with that section. Making sure I've got that car shadow where the other part of the tail there is folding over the front section as well, so that'll be darker under there. So you can see now I'm just coming in and deepening up the colour. I'm still using a fairly light pressure here, and it's not until a little bit later where I come in and just put more firm pressure on there and spread that colour out a little bit more. So you can already see now with what I've done, you can see where it looks like it's now more 3D. You can see the angles and the shadows are going to look quite nice through there. So I'm using the same combo that we use in the clothes. So we've got Hooker's Green next. Kind of makes it a really nice blue-green. It's not really, I guess, totally, completely green. It is a little bit more blue. So I'm coming in now, putting a little bit of pressure onto the shadowed areas and releasing that pressure as I come out towards the edges more. So I've just gone over the skin there a bit. I'm going to grab that colourless blender and just rub that off again. So you can see it works really well as erasing that top layer of pigment. You don't want to push too hard on those areas because you will remove the colour pigment from the skin as well. So just a light pressure over the top and it removed that green nicely. So now I'm coming in a little bit firmer pressure right through from the shadow areas out. I'm going to use a little bit more cobalt green just to get that nice and deep, and as I said, putting complete pressure on now in those shadow areas because I want to keep them nice and dark. Now I've got Chrome Oxide Green Fiery. That's a really long name for a pencil, but anyway, I'm going to come in now and fill out the remainder of those areas, making sure that I really leave the lightest part of each of those top curves, so it really does look like that is really the tip of a, I guess, a hill, and that the other areas are valleys. So I've got the Polychromos white there again, and I'm just coming over the top of the white. I want to keep that white, and I'm just smudging this color through into the other colors there just to lighten them off a little bit and make that a nice smooth transition between them. I'm going to come in a little while with some white opaque watercolor paint just to really lighten up those areas as well. So I'm kind of using a mixture of both. It depended on how much white areas were left. If there was a fair bit of white, I've used the Caran d'Ache white. If there's just a smaller sections here, I've used the Prismacolor, the Polychromos white, sorry. I'm just going to finally flatten off the rest of that tooth with the Caran d'Ache blending stick. If you don't have a blending stick, you don't need to worry about this section at all. You would just use, you could use a Prismacolor one, or if you want to keep it nice and smooth and you've got some texture through there that you don't want, you could also use a blending solution, and a blending stub would also do the similar type of thing. So just remember with the blending stub that it will move around the pigment as well, so you'll have some of the darker color move into the light if you don't start from the lighter section. So just finishing this part off here, and I'm going to do the bottom part of the tail blue. So I'm going to use the blues I used in his belt and on the bangles there on his arm, or the band on his arm there. So I've got ultramarine. I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did with the green. I've gone into those shadow areas. I'm actually doing these quite firm. And I'm just extending some of those lines all the way up or all the way down, depending on where they came into the fold. So I've just fixed all those up there. I've got light thalio blue, and I'm just going to go in and do the lighter sections or the mid-tones, and I'm going to leave some sections there where I'm going to leave very, very white or light. So because I wanted this to be a little bit more pastel-y, I'm using the Caran d'Ache white luminance to go into the wider sections and over the remaining colour. So you can see I'm still going over the other colours as well. I'm not going as deep into the shadow area, so we can still have some of that shadow colour there and have that depth in it. I'm going to come in and deepen up the shadows with that ultramarine again. So you can see how it really does help to sort of bring out and make that white contrast area a lot brighter when you do deepen up those shadows. So I'm going to start on her eyes. I'm going to use ultramarine for the darker areas. I'm going to do this to the top part of the eyes here. I'm not going to do any shadow or grey through here because I didn't feel the need to, and they still looked quite nice the way that I've done them. So I've got light thalio blue, and I'm just going in and finishing off, blending that into the bottom section of the eyes there. So I'm going to use some medium flesh just inside the mouth, and I'm using pink Madder Lake for the lips here, and I'm just sort of going in and doing the shadow areas there. I've got some fuchsia, just going to brighten that up a little bit. I've still left a tiny little bit of area there which will be a little bit lighter, and I'm going to just blend that out with the white. So we've kind of created a little bit of a shine there. It is quite tiny, so you can't really see it that well, but it still looks quite nice. So give it a go. I'm going to do the body part down here with ultramarine. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I did with the scales on his wing, but I'm using the blue this time. And I'm just going to go and line all of these areas. So you can see I'm putting a shadow, all my stuff's moved. I'm putting a shadow underneath each of those scales to make them look like they're overlapping each other. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to bring a black pen in later and line those out. So I've got light phthalo blue, and I'm just coming out and covering up almost all of the scales. I'm leaving a little white section in each of those just to sort of give them a little bit of a shimmer. In actual fact, this probably would have been quite dark if you were doing it more realistic, because it is at the bottom of the picture here, so underneath all of those shadows you probably wouldn't see a lot of this. So I'm just using the white Polychromos to go over that and create those little highlighted sections. I've just come in a little bit deeper with the ultramarine just to darken those off again. I'm going to bring in a black pen over the top of that, and I'm just going to lift up or make those scales a little bit deeper as well. So we've got some light phthalo green. I'm going to do the seaweed over her shoulder. So this is going to be very similar to the hair. We've got our dips and our shadows, our dips and our highlights. So dips and hills, valleys and hills, whatever. So I'm going to use this green to do the middle part of that. So I've done the whole middle vine with that. And then I'm just coming in and making sure I'm marking out the lighter areas first. So I've marked those out, and now I'm going to come into the dips and I'm going to mark in the darker shadows. I've got Hooker's green to blend that out a little bit further. And then the chrome oxide fiery. We want this to be similar coloured to her tail, but I don't want it to be exactly the same colour strength. So I want this to be a lot lighter than the tail, but still using the same sort of shades and tones. So we've got that light phthalo green again, and I'm just coming over those highlighted areas and also into the dark areas as well. I'm starting to use a little bit more pressure now. So you can see it's already starting to transform from just a wiggly line on the page to something that does look like it's actually moving and waving in the water there. So I've come back to that dark colour, and I'm just deepening up these dips or valleys. And I'm just blending those out with the remaining colours again. So I'm going to come back in with a little bit firmer pressure over the top with that light phthalo green. So you can see now I'm coming from the darker areas, and I'm actually putting a fair bit of pressure on there now. Trying to just smooth this out, and as I said, I wanted it a little bit lighter than the tail. I'm going to grab that white Luminance pencil, and I'm going to do this quite heavy pressured over the highlighted sections the most. So really trying to lighten that up. Now I'm going to repeat these same steps on the bottom one, so I'll just pop them up on the screen for you. So that's it. We're going to come back in and we will do the water and the sky backgrounds, and also I'll do some touch up, some highlights, and put in a few more details with a fine liner and some white opaque watercolor paint. So guys, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you for the next video.